Women make up about 44% of the workforce in Singapore, but in the boardroom, it's a very different story. Women occupied 7.3% of the seats on the boards of Singapore exchange-listed companies in 2011. That's a slight improvement from the previous year when they held 6.9% of board seats, but places like Australia, France, and the United Kingdom are improving at an even faster rate. These findings in the Singapore Board Diversity Report, The Female Factor, show the gap widening between Singapore and other developed economies. Marlene Dielman with NUS Business School's Center for Governance, Institutions and Organizations is the lead researcher.
I think if we compare Singapore to other countries on this particular benchmark of corporate governance, it obviously has some way to go in terms of improvement.
The report is a joint initiative of CGIO and Board Agenda, an organization that supports the advancement of women into senior leadership roles and the boardroom. Dielman says increasingly companies are paying attention to gender balance on their boards because of its effect on their bottom line.
The prime reason why gender diversity is important is a business case. So more and more reports and also academic studies are coming out which demonstrate that boards with more women also perform better.
Swiss bank UBS is the main sponsor for the report. Edmund Koh, the country head for Singapore, believes that while the pace of change may be slow, the change will come.
There is actually going to be, in my view, a very natural evolution to board representation being more balanced. And this is actually more driven out of consideration of consumer needs. It has to happen. It's as simple as that.
It's already happening in some sectors. For example, family firms had more female directors than non-family firms, 8.2% compared to 6.3%. And listed trusts, such as real estate investment trusts, had women in 9.7% of their board positions. The report also looks at what Dielman calls the G factor, G as in government. Take, for example, companies held by the Singapore government-controlled Temasek Holdings. The report found women hold 10.3% of these board seats, although it should be noted that 3 of the companies in this category had no female board members. This year, the report also analyzed statutory boards, non-listed entities controlled by the government. Here, 19.8% of the board positions were held by women. Minister of State Madame Halima Yacob says that sends a strong signal that the government is leading the way, and she said the government should continue to do so, setting targets for improvement.
I strongly urge companies to set themselves a target of having at least 15% of women on their boards within 5 years. I think 15%, considering that now it's 7.3%, is an extremely modest target. I would also like to up the ante for statutory boards and urge them to have at least 25% of women on their boards within the same period. They're already now 19.8% for our statutory board, so 25% is an even more modest target.
But it's an uphill battle. A McKinsey study found that 63% of executives in Singapore do not see gender diversity as a strategic priority for their company. John Lim, the chairman of the Singapore Institute of Directors, knows that firsthand.
In Singapore, the subject of women or the consideration of women on boards is not something that is, I think, generally accepted by most companies. I've been on boards for 30 plus years, and most times the subject of women on boards has never even come up for consideration or even discussion. Now, I think this is a situation that we have to change. How is the big challenge?
The Singapore government's revised Code of Corporate Governance provides some answers. It requires boards to be made up of members that represent an appropriate balance and diversity of skills, experience, gender, and knowledge of the company. It also tightens the definition of independent director by, among other things, requiring a rigorous review if the director has held the post more than 9 years. Dielman says about 500 directors fall into that category, providing an opportunity for what she calls a quick win.
So suppose we would replace all these long-sitting 500 directors, right? And we would assume that all of the replacements are women. We can make Madame Halima's new target.
Dielman says the ongoing research can identify patterns in the push for diversity, but it's up to the government and companies to take action. For NUS Business School, I'm Katie Sargent.